The Galactic Council Hall, a sprawling structure built from the rarest materials of the galaxy, was the heart of interstellar governance. The massive amphitheater was filled with diplomats, military leaders, and researchers from 1,000 different species, each more ancient and advanced than humanity could ever imagine. Screens embedded in the walls flickered to life, and the assembly fell into a hush. At the center of the hall stood the council leader, a tall, imposing figure from the Zodrakar Empire. Their silver robes shimmered with the light of distant stars, and their piercing violet eyes scanned the room. The council leader's voice echoed through the hall, a rich tone laced with authority. Today, we welcome a new entry into our collective, a species that, by all accounts, has somehow managed to stumble into space: humanity. The first images of humanity's ships filled the enormous screens. They were crude, bulky vessels, reminiscent of early Earth rockets, but without the sleek designs or advanced technology of established galactic powers. Each ship looked like a collection of mismatched parts welded together: old, outdated weaponry, inefficient engines, and armor that seemed far too heavy for its purpose. Every inch screamed of desperation rather than sophistication. A ripple of laughter spread through the hall as representatives from the Shell Terra, an ancient, almost immortal species, exchanged glances. The Shell Terra were famous for their elegant, almost organic ships, sleek and impossibly fast. They, along with others in the council, had never seen anything like it. Their ships. A Shell Terra diplomat scoffed, her voice laced with disbelief. How do they even make it out of their atmosphere? They can barely hold together, let alone survive interstellar travel. A gruff voice from the Telcran delegate boomed next. Their weapons are little more than glorified fireworks. The energy required to fire them would tear those ships apart before they could even hit a target. The laughter grew louder, and even the usually stoic representatives of the Gorgathian Dominion cracked smiles, though their faces were more amused than anything else. The council leader raised a hand, silencing the crowd. Indeed, they said, allowing the laughter to die down. It's clear that these humans have no place in our galaxy. Their technology is primitive, their understanding of space travel laughable. They have no chance of surviving the harsh realities of galactic conflict. This will be a brief introduction, and their ships will be relegated to the history books as a curiosity. He turned to a holographic projection of humanity's most famous ship, a colossal behemoth called the Dreadnought. The image flickered, showing its spindly, haphazard frame. Let us be clear, the council leader continued. This Dreadnought will never be a serious threat. We need not concern ourselves with them. As the final words of dismissal hung in the air, the council members began to murmur amongst themselves. Most returned to their own affairs, confident in their assessment of the human race. After all, they were the masters of space, with technology millennia ahead of Earth's puny fleet. Yet, unbeknownst to them, the humans weren't bothered. They weren't even angry. They were simply amused. Back on Earth, a different kind of meeting was taking place, one that would change the trajectory of humanity's place in the galaxy. But for now, the council's laughter rang in the void, unaware that the joke was just beginning. The message came through to Earth's top military command first, then to every major news outlet across the planet. The Galactic Council had scoffed at them. The very idea of human spacefaring capabilities was deemed laughable by the most advanced minds in the galaxy. The video footage, taken from the Council's Grand Assembly, was everywhere. Every broadcast channel, every social media platform, shared the moment when the Council leader had mocked humanity's ships and technologies. But something strange happened. Instead of a wave of anger, confusion, or shame, humanity responded with laughter. It was as though the whole world had collectively exhaled in amusement at the absurdity of it all. In military command centers, soldiers exchanged knowing glances and hearty chuckles. Captain Helen Anders, one of Earth's top fleet commanders, watched the footage in her office on the space station Olympus. She leaned back in her chair, smirking as the laughter echoed through her speakers. I thought they'd get the message after the last encounter. Guess not, she muttered to herself. The video ended with the council leader's statement. These humans will not survive the vastness of space. She shook her head, a grin on her face. I wouldn't bet against them. At a small military base in Nevada, Lieutenant David Cross stood in front of a team of engineers who worked day and night to maintain Earth's fleet. The news of the Galactic Council's ridicule had already spread, and the engineers were enjoying it far more than they probably should have. David had seen the human ships in action. He knew they were far from perfect, but he also knew one thing. They could take a beating. And they always found a way to win, even when victory seemed impossible. Do you know what I love about this? David asked, pacing in front of a holographic projection of one of the human ships. The engineers looked up, their attention captured. The council, all those arrogant, polished, pristine species, think we're a joke. But we don't need to be perfect. We don't need the sleek designs. We need grit. And you know what? That's something they'll never understand. The room fell silent as the engineers exchanged glances. They all understood. It wasn't about efficiency or the latest technology. It was about the will to survive, the refusal to give up, no matter the odds. That was humanity's true strength, and the Galactic Council had just underestimated it. Across the world, from busy city centers to quiet rural towns, the reaction was the same. People didn't rally with anger or shame. They rallied with pride. Humanity wasn't known for having the most advanced ships, the most elegant technology, or the biggest fleets. But they had something that no galactic power could ever replicate: heart. And that, in the end, was what mattered most. Even on the moon, in the bustling research labs of Lunar Base 1, scientists watched the news in awe. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, a lead scientist on several interstellar projects, smiled as the council's laughter filled the lab. It's just like us, she said to her team. They think we're a curiosity. But if they only knew what we're capable of when we put our minds to it, we're not just fighting with technology, we're fighting with our very nature. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just going to roll over and accept the ridicule. No, they were going to prove everyone wrong. And the galaxy would soon learn that when humans are underestimated, it's not a joke. It's a warning. As the laughter continued to echo in the halls of the Galactic Council, humanity had already begun to prepare. What the Council didn't know was that Earth's response would be something they never expected, something they couldn't prepare for, something that would prove humanity's place among the stars, not through advanced ships, but through the very essence of what it meant to be human. It wasn't long before the first challenge arrived. The Drellians, an aggressive but technologically inferior species, were eager to prove themselves after watching the Galactic Council dismiss humanity so easily. With their sleek, high-efficiency warships, they believed humanity's crude, slow ships would be no match for them. They viewed human technology as nothing more than a curiosity, incapable of withstanding the force of their advanced weaponry. The Drellians, confident in their superiority, set course for the human colony on Cerberus EX, a mining outpost nestled on the edge of Earth's star system. It was a small colony, home to less than 1 million people, far removed from the political importance of Earth itself. The Drellian fleet, a dozen fast-moving ships equipped with plasma cannons and energy shields, arrived just outside the colony's defenses, expecting to wipe the settlement off the map without breaking a sweat. Their initial plan was simple: strike fast, overwhelm, and annihilate. The human fleet, composed of aging ships from Earth's earliest days of space exploration, was no match for them. Or so they thought. When the Drellian fleet dropped out of hyperspace, their first mistake was not factoring in humanity's adaptability. The human ships, far from the sleek, sophisticated designs the Drellians were used to, lurched into formation. The human fleet looked almost comical at first, with its rough exteriors and odd, spiky structures, a far cry from the Drellian elegance. Yet, as the first round of plasma bolts fired from the Drellian ships, something strange happened. The human ships didn't break. They didn't fall apart like the Drellians expected. Instead, the shields of the human ships absorbed the impact, and the hulls, far thicker than anything the Drellians had ever encountered, remained intact. The human fleet began to return fire, but their weapons were nothing like the Drellians' plasma cannons. They were crude, bulky, but deadly. Captain Anders, commanding the human fleet from Defiance, a battered but resilient destroyer, stood at the center of the chaos, her eyes focused on the enemy movements. "Hold steady," she ordered, her voice calm, almost too calm for the situation. The human ships responded to her commands with an unyielding ferocity. Even when the Drellians aimed their plasma weapons directly at their ships, humans didn't retreat. Instead, they moved in closer. "Fire at their weak points," Anders called. The human vessels didn't rely on traditional tactics. They didn't wait for the perfect shot. They focused on exploiting any vulnerability, no matter how small. It was chaotic, unpredictable, but it worked. The Drellians had no idea what hit them. One of the larger Drellian ships, a heavily shielded battlecruiser, took a direct hit from one of the human vessels. The weapon, designed for mining operations, had been retrofitted to launch massive, hypervelocity projectiles, far from the advanced energy weapons most species used, but the projectiles were capable of tearing through the thickest of hulls. The Drellian battlecruiser's shields flickered once, then failed. The human projectile embedded itself deep in the ship's core, rupturing the reactor. The Drellian fleet, once so confident in their superiority, found themselves struggling to respond. They attempted to regroup, but human ships closed in, utilizing every bit of their ship's capabilities, from old-fashioned evasive maneuvers to improvised tactics that threw off the Drellian commanders. The human ships never gave up. They never retreated. They simply kept coming. Within hours, the Drellian fleet was in full retreat, their ships damaged beyond repair. The human forces had suffered losses, but they had held their ground and delivered a decisive blow. The human victory was not one of technological superiority, but one of sheer resilience, adaptability, and an understanding that survival was less about perfection and more about refusing to back down. As the last of the Drellian ships vanished into hyperspace, Captain Anders stared out at the damage. Her heart raced, but there was no time to celebrate. The message had been sent. Humanity was not a joke. The galaxy would soon learn that underestimating humans was a grave mistake. Word spread quickly. The Drellians, who had expected an easy conquest, now feared the very ships they had once laughed at. And the Galactic Council. They were starting to reconsider their assumptions about humanity. But for now, Earth's fleet sat quietly in the stars, waiting for whatever challenge might come next. The aftermath of the Drellian attack was more than just a victory for humanity. It was a revelation. In the days following their stunning success, engineers, scientists, and military experts from across the galaxy scrambled to figure out exactly what had happened. How had humanity's seemingly outdated ships managed to defeat the technologically superior Drellian fleet with such efficiency? The answers, it turned out, lay not in advanced weaponry or cutting-edge technology, but in a philosophy far older and more deeply ingrained in human nature: resilience. The Council, growing more concerned with each passing day, dispatched their best engineers to study the remains of the Drellian ships and the wreckage of the human vessels. They expected to find primitive designs that had been somehow lucky to withstand the assault. What they found instead was something entirely different, something far more dangerous. Dr. Aisha Valkor, a renowned Zodrakar engineer, was one of the first to gain access to the human shipwrecks. The Zodrakar were famous for their advanced understanding of structural integrity, but even they were baffled by what they saw. "These ships," she said, inspecting the remains of a battered human destroyer, the Defiance, "they are over-engineered in ways I've never seen before. There's redundancy in every part, multiple layers of armor where there shouldn't be any, internal systems that function beyond their specifications." Her team studied every inch of the wreckage. They dismantled parts of the human ships, analyzing the materials used in the hulls, the propulsion systems, and the weapons. Each part of the ship seemed to be designed to withstand far more than it should logically need to. The armor, while far bulkier than the sleek plating of advanced alien vessels, had been designed to absorb and distribute energy from attacks in unpredictable ways. The propulsion systems, though inefficient by galactic standards, had been crafted to keep the ships operational even when half the system was damaged. And the weapons, far from being the delicate, high-powered lasers most races used, were brutal, crude, and designed to hit hard, no matter the cost. Dr. Valcour couldn't help but shake her head in awe. "This isn't about efficiency or elegance," she murmured. "It's about sheer durability. These humans built their ships to take the worst of it and still keep going. They don't build to look good or fight pretty. They build to survive, to outlast." Meanwhile, a team of military analysts from the Shalterra observed the human combat strategies. The Shalterra had long prided themselves on their calculated, precise warfare. They understood how to outthink their opponents, outmaneuver them, and win through superior tactics. But watching the human fleets, they realized that this was a completely different approach. The humans didn't fight by the rules they knew. They didn't plan for perfection. They planned for chaos. A senior strategist from the Shalterra, High Commander Vela, sat quietly in the command center of their warship, studying battle footage. "They don't react like any species I've encountered," she said, voice tinged with disbelief. "They aren't precise. They don't follow traditional combat protocols. They adapt. They improvise in real time. It's like their tactics are built for the unexpected." For the first time in her career, High Commander Vela felt a flicker of doubt. In her mind, the galaxy's most advanced species were the ones who could plan the perfect strike, who could orchestrate every move with mathematical precision. But the humans, they embraced the chaos, and somehow it worked. Back on Earth, military leaders and strategists were watching the galactic reaction with growing satisfaction. The news of the Drellian defeat had spread across the galaxy, and more species were starting to ask the question that the Council hadn't wanted to entertain. Could humanity actually be a real threat? As Earth's commanders analyzed the latest intelligence, they came to a single conclusion. Humanity had always been underestimated. The Galactic Council and its allies had viewed humans as an oddity, an emerging species with no real place in the grand order of things. But they'd overlooked one crucial factor. Humans had never played by the rules. And that, it seemed, was their greatest strength. The Drellians had failed to understand the human design. The galaxy had dismissed their ships as crude and inefficient, but now they were beginning to see the truth. Human ships weren't meant to be efficient. They weren't meant to look beautiful. They were designed to do one thing above all: survive. And the galaxy was about to learn the hard way that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their relentless will to endure. In the wake of humanity's stunning victory over the Drellians, the Galactic Council began to grow increasingly nervous. The very species they had once dismissed as a curiosity was beginning to make waves across the galaxy. The report from the Drellian encounter had circulated quickly, with most races still trying to comprehend what had happened. Some of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful empires were growing concerned. The Council, in particular, needed to reassert its dominance and prove that humanity was nothing more than an anomaly, a fluke in the galaxy's order. The solution, they decided, would be a demonstration. The Shalterra had been vocal in their belief that humanity was a threat, but the Council wasn't willing to admit such an oversight just yet. They chose to stage a war game, a carefully controlled exercise designed to expose the so-called weaknesses of humanity's ships and tactics. The rules would be simple. Humanity would face off against a fleet of the galaxy's most elite commanders and their finest ships. The demonstration would take place in a neutral zone, far from any civilian systems, so that no innocent lives would be caught in the crossfire. A battle of tactics, pure and simple. The Council's bet was that humanity's raw, unrefined approach would be no match for the precision and calculated strategies of the galactic elite. The outcome was certain in their minds. But the humans had other plans. When the human representatives received the invitation to the war game, they didn't hesitate for a moment. They knew the stakes. The Council was eager to humiliate them, to prove that their spacefaring technology and chaotic combat style had no place in the galaxy's future. Yet the humans weren't angry or defensive. Instead, they were amused. They saw it as an opportunity to showcase their true strength, the one thing no alien fleet had yet accounted for: their unpredictability. Captain Anders and her fleet were chosen to lead humanity's side in the war game. The setup was simple. The opposing fleet would consist of the best military minds from the Zodrakar, Shaltara, and other prestigious species, all equipped with their most advanced ships. These ships were designed for speed, precision, and overwhelming firepower. The human fleet, by contrast, was a collection of older, patched-up vessels. No ship had advanced shields or weapons. Everything about them was seemingly inferior, crude, and impractical. The first wave of the battle began with a bang. The galactic fleet moved as one, an elegant, synchronized unit of perfectly timed strikes. The human ships, in contrast, moved erratically, as if each captain was working alone. There was no unified formation, no tactics that the opposing commanders could predict. It was chaos. The Zodrakar Admiral, Admiral Kalen, watched as the human fleet sped toward them. He had studied the battle reports from the Drullian encounter. But this was different. Why don't they fall back? He muttered, watching as a human destroyer barreled directly into his fleet's path. The Admiral gave the order to fire, expecting the human ship to be obliterated. But the ship held firm, its armor absorbing the shots as if it were made of stone. It didn't retreat. It just kept going. Fire everything. Kalen barked, desperation creeping into his voice. His fleet unleashed a torrent of energy beams and plasma shells, but the human ship didn't falter. It simply kept moving forward, shaking off the blows as if they were nothing more than annoying bugs. Meanwhile, Captain Anders on the Defiance wasn't concerned with the elegant, coordinated attacks of the alien fleet. She wasn't trying to outmaneuver them in a conventional sense. Instead, she focused on disrupting their rhythm. Her ships zigzagged across the battlefield, forcing the alien fleet to adjust every time they thought they had a shot. She didn't need perfect tactics. She just needed to stay unpredictable. As the minutes ticked by, the galactic fleet began to falter. The precision and efficiency they were known for worked against them. The human ships were everywhere, in places they shouldn't be, attacking from angles they never expected. The unpredictable movements of the human fleet caused the well-organized alien ships to lose their formation, throwing off their coordination. And then came the human counterstrike. Instead of focusing on direct hits or powerful weapons, the human fleet began to target the enemy's vulnerabilities. A small, unprotected reactor here, a communication relay there. They didn't need to destroy their opponents in one fell swoop. They just needed to neutralize them slowly, methodically. It didn't take long for the first alien ship to retreat, then another, and another. By the time the war game ended, what was left of the alien fleet had been scattered and disoriented. The humans hadn't won in the way anyone expected. They hadn't overpowered their enemies with superior technology or firepower. They had won through sheer grit, through a refusal to follow the rules, and most importantly, through an understanding that chaos, when used correctly, could be more powerful than any calculated strategy. As the human fleet emerged victorious, the entire Galactic Assembly watched in stunned silence. The Council members, once so certain of their superiority, now realized the truth. They had misjudged humanity. And in their desperation to prove the humans unworthy, they had only reinforced one undeniable fact: humans were not to be underestimated. The aftermath of the war game was nothing short of a shockwave across the galaxy. The Galactic Council, in its desperation to crush humanity's burgeoning influence, had inadvertently elevated them. The victory, though not the result the Council had expected, was a resounding statement. Humanity was no longer just a curiosity. It was a force to be reckoned with, and the rest of the galaxy began to take notice. The immediate reaction among the galactic powers was one of confusion and denial. The Zodrakar, who had been certain of their supremacy, could not fathom how their fleet had been bested by what they still considered primitive ships. The Shelterra, long regarded as tacticians without equal, were perplexed by the chaotic nature of the human fleet's movements. For the first time in their long history, they found themselves confronted with an adversary who didn't play by any known rules. In the corridors of the Galactic Council's vast, towering headquarters, representatives from every corner of the galaxy convened for an emergency session. The air was thick with tension. Leaders who had once dismissed humanity as insignificant now found themselves questioning the wisdom of their previous assessment. What went wrong? The voice of Rylak, a senior member of the Council and a fierce critic of humanity, cut through the gathered leaders. His silver robes shimmered under the bright lights of the chamber, but his face was drawn with frustration. This wasn't supposed to happen. Our fleets were perfect. We planned every angle. But the humans, how could they win? Their strategy was unorthodox, replied Delina, a member from the Shelterra. We couldn't predict their movements. They defied everything we know about space warfare. It was chaos. But that's just it, Rylak snapped. It was chaos. And they won because of it. We allowed them to fight on their own terms. Our tactics are based on precision and efficiency. We never anticipated their unpredictability would be the key to victory. What they did, said Ithara, a member of the Gorgathian Dominion, her voice soft but heavy with disbelief, wasn't a fluke. They'd been doing this for years, ever since their first contact with the greater galaxy. Every time they encounter a challenge, they adjust, adapt, and survive. The Council was divided, the air thick with a mixture of frustration and begrudging respect. But the truth was undeniable. Humanity was not a fluke. The last several encounters had made it clear. Humans had a unique edge, an ability to learn, adapt, and evolve in ways the rest of the galaxy hadn't seen before. It wasn't just their ships. It wasn't just their unpredictable combat style. It was their sheer will to survive. Back on Earth, humanity's response was one of quiet confidence. The victory over the galactic fleet had been a victory for all of humanity, not just the military. It was a reaffirmation of what Earth had always known about itself. Despite their relative youth in the cosmic scale, humans had an inherent adaptability and grit that couldn't be matched. People all over the planet celebrated, not with arrogant boasts, but with an unshakable sense of pride. We've always been the underdogs, said Dr. Maria Rodriguez, looking over the reports from the war game at Lunar Base 1. But that's what makes us dangerous. When we're underestimated, that's when we're at our best. Captain Anders, who had led the human fleet during the war game, was just as composed as always. She had faced down the best the galaxy had to offer and emerged victorious. But there was no grand celebration. Instead, she stood on the bridge of the Defiance, reviewing the data from the battle and considering what came next. Now we wait, she said to her crew. The Council's made their move. We've made ours, but there's still more to come. The galaxy had been rattled, but no one knew just how far humanity's impact would reach. The Council might have underestimated humanity once, but it wouldn't make that mistake again. For every species watching, the message was clear. Humanity would no longer be ignored. They would no longer be dismissed. They had earned their place in the stars. And anyone who thought otherwise would soon learn that underestimating humans was the greatest mistake of all. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread about humanity's victory. Allies of the Galactic Council grew wary, while even distant empires began to send representatives to Earth, curious about this strange, unpredictable species. The tides were shifting. And now, for the first time, humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer in question. It was a fact, and those who had once laughed at their ships were now watching carefully, wondering what would come next. But humanity wasn't done yet. The true test was still ahead, and Earth was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. As the galaxy grappled with the shock of humanity's unexpected victory, a new chapter in the conflict began to unfold. The Galactic Council, now fully aware that humanity was no mere aberration, began to shift its focus. No longer could they dismiss humanity's raw power as a fluke. A far more dangerous realization had settled in. The humans weren't just resilient and unpredictable. They were growing stronger by the day. What the Council didn't yet know, however, was that their miscalculation ran deeper than they realized. Humanity's rapid development wasn't purely the result of chance. It was the product of something far more powerful, something that none of the galactic powers had anticipated. The Earth had something that the other species lacked, an untapped potential for innovation and unity, driven by their deepest instincts to survive. This unseen force had already begun to shape the humans' ascension. The war game had been the first official demonstration, but what had gone unnoticed by the Council was humanity's rapid technological advancements since that first victory. Earth's engineers, already known for their ability to think outside the box, had begun working with a relentless intensity, producing new technologies at an unprecedented rate. The victory over the Drellians had lit a fire within humanity, a fire that was now spreading across every sector of their society. One of the primary driving forces behind this transformation was the human drive to learn. They had never had the luxury of complacency, constantly pushed to evolve by the harsh realities of their history. As a result, humanity possessed a unique advantage, an insatiable desire for knowledge, and an inherent adaptability. This thirst for progress, combined with their deep-rooted instinct to survive, had created an environment where technology and innovation could grow faster than even the most advanced alien societies could keep up with. Humanity had begun reverse engineering some of the advanced technology they had seized from defeated fleets, learning from every encounter. Their scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked in overdrive, creating hybridized technologies that merged the best aspects of alien advancements with their own, crafting weapons, shields, and propulsion systems that no one had seen before. They didn't aim to copy, they aimed to improve, to push the boundaries of what was possible. But what truly gave them the edge wasn't just their technical prowess. It was their ability to adapt their strategies to meet the ever-evolving challenges presented by the galaxy's greatest powers. In every engagement, whether military or diplomatic, humanity's tactics were as unpredictable as they were effective. Every alien fleet that clashed with a human force walked away with the same grim realization: the humans could not be easily anticipated or contained. As Earth's technological advancements accelerated, a new series of encounters began to unfold. Smaller factions and independent systems, sensing the rise of humanity, began to align themselves with Earth. They saw humanity's potential as both a shield and a sword, and they began offering assistance, whether in the form of resources, technology, or strategic support. The once dismissed species from Earth were now becoming allies to many, their strength undeniable. However, not all were eager to embrace humanity. The Galactic Council, its members shaken by the sudden shift in power, began to debate more drastic measures. Some factions argued that humanity must be contained at all costs, while others were still hopeful that humanity could be swayed toward cooperation. Among the more extreme voices, there were whispers of wiping humanity out entirely, fearing that their unpredictable rise could shatter the carefully constructed balance of power in the galaxy. This division within the Council grew louder with each passing day. A faction led by Rylac, still determined to assert control over the situation, proposed a bold and risky course of action: an all-out invasion. If humanity refused to bend to the will of the Council, they would be crushed by force. Despite the efforts of more diplomatic members who argued for negotiation, the idea of using overwhelming military power began to take shape. Unknown to the Council, however, humanity had already prepared for this. The war game wasn't just a demonstration of their tactical skill. It was a message. Earth wasn't going to be bullied into submission. Humanity was playing the long game, and they knew the Council's next steps all too well. Captain Anders and her fleet, now equipped with cutting-edge hybrid technologies, were ready. Earth's fleets were no longer the underdogs, but a formidable force capable of matching the galactic powers blow for blow. But humanity knew that brute force alone wouldn't win this battle. The Council was powerful, but they were also predictable. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't just their ships or their ingenuity. It was their ability to think, act, and adapt faster than anyone else. The question was no longer whether humanity could survive. The real question was, could the galaxy adapt fast enough to keep up with them? As tensions mounted, Earth's response was clear. Humanity wasn't just a force to be reckoned with. They were the harbingers of a new era. An era where adaptability and survival were the ultimate keys to power, and the old ways of thinking were obsolete. The Council and the galaxy at large had underestimated humanity once, and now they were beginning to realize their mistake. But for Captain Anders and her crew, this was just the beginning. The true test would soon come, and humanity was ready to prove it was not just a fleeting anomaly. They were the future. As the Council's decision to launch a full-scale invasion loomed closer, tensions across the galaxy reached a boiling point. The once dominant powers of the Galactic Council were now on edge, faced with the reality that humanity, a species they had so long underestimated, was rapidly becoming a force that could not simply be ignored or crushed. With every passing day, more systems aligned with Earth, offering both covert and overt support. Humanity's allies were growing in numbers, each new alliance further unsettling the established order of the galaxy. The Council, desperate to regain control, had already assembled a vast fleet, its greatest armada yet, to crush what they now saw as a rising threat. Led by the infamous Admiral Threx, known for his ruthless efficiency and unyielding strategies, the fleet was prepared to show humanity its place in the galactic hierarchy once and for all. The time for diplomacy, they believed, had long passed. But humanity wasn't about to bend to anyone's will. Captain Anders and her fleet, the Defiance at the helm, stood ready. They had been preparing for this moment since the first battle against the Drellians, and now Earth's forces were more than prepared to face the might of the Council. The technologies they had developed, the strategies they had honed, and most importantly, the mindset they had cultivated, unpredictability, adaptability, and sheer tenacity, would be their greatest weapons. Humanity had never been afraid to take risks. Now, they were ready to take the ultimate risk, confronting the full wrath of the galaxy's most powerful factions head-on. I've said it before, Captain Anders spoke calmly to her crew, her gaze focused on the holographic display of the incoming invasion fleet. This isn't about proving we're stronger. It's about proving that we will never be crushed. We fight to survive, and if that means facing down the entire galaxy, then that's what we do. Her words were simple but carried the weight of everything humanity had fought for. The crew of the Defiance stood by her, each one of them aware that the battle ahead would be unlike anything they had ever faced before. But they were ready. They were human. The confrontation began in the neutral zone, a vast area of space devoid of any strategic value, but the perfect location for an all-out war. As the Council's armada descended, their fleet was like a storm, each ship gleaming with polished perfection, a symbol of galactic might. Thousands of vessels from every corner of the galaxy stood in tight formation, their weapons primed, and their commanders poised for victory. And then there was humanity's fleet, smaller in number, but not in spirit. They had prepared, sure, but not by merely building up their military power. Humanity's true strength was in their ability to think on their feet, to adapt, and to disrupt. As Admiral Threx gave the order to attack, the first volley of plasma fire shot toward Earth's ships. But humanity didn't just sit still and return fire. They scattered, their ships moving unpredictably, darting in and out of the line of fire with astonishing speed. Where the Council's fleet expected organized resistance, they encountered a maelstrom of chaos. Every human ship, from the smallest frigate to the largest destroyer, became an unpredictable force of nature. And just as they had in every prior battle, they adapted on the fly, finding weaknesses and exploiting them before the Council could react. The battle unfolded like a storm. The alien fleets, so sure of their superiority, were slowly and methodically being thrown off balance. Human ships targeted the edges of the massive formations, exploiting the gaps between the alien vessels, where their firepower was less concentrated. They attacked supply lines, crippled communication relays, and even used the terrain of the neutral zone. An asteroid field, rich with resources but hazardous to navigate, to gain the upper hand. "We're not just fighting them," Captain Anders said, watching the chaos unfold on her tactical display. "We're making them fight us on our terms. We're controlling the battlefield." And that was when the true power of humanity's strategy began to show. The Council had underestimated the sheer adaptability of the human fleet, and now it was becoming painfully clear. Each human ship, no matter how battered, continued to fight. The enemy's firepower was vast, but human ingenuity was relentless. As the hours passed, the Council's forces started to falter. The precision of their strikes became increasingly erratic as their commanders struggled to anticipate humanity's next move. The battle was no longer a one-sided affair. The tide was turning. Admiral Threx, once so confident in his victory, stared in disbelief as his fleet became a tangled mess of confusion. They had lost their sense of order, and with it, their superiority. The once unshakable military might of the galaxy's oldest powers was now crumbling before the sheer will and unpredictability of humanity. The breaking point came when a large portion of the Council's fleet began to retreat. With their communications scrambled and their tactics in disarray, they saw no way forward but to withdraw, abandoning their efforts to crush humanity in one fell swoop. Victory, however, was not enough. Humanity had proven that it was capable of surviving the galaxy's wrath, but Captain Anders and her crew knew this was only the beginning. The Council might have retreated for now, but they would return. The galaxy had never witnessed a species like humanity before, and there were still those who would stop at nothing to ensure Earth's downfall. For humanity, however, this was a moment of pride. They had proven their place among the stars, and now they would shape their future on their own terms. The galaxy had underestimated them once. It would not make the same mistake again. The reckoning was far from over, but humanity had already won the most important battle of all. The battle to be heard, to be seen, and to be respected.